Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Hello, and thank you for downloading the Amazon show here on Wisp Sports. I'm Chris Stafford. This show tells the stories of women who set off on great adventures around the world by land, sea, or air. And this episode is no exception. Our guest is Bernadette Murray, who, together with Lara Friesan, is going to be embarking on a 2,650-mile journey when she takes on the Pacific Crest Trail from Mexico to Canada next April 2020. They'll be taking 4 horses on this occasion, and they'll be following the trail that Bernadette did along with her family almost 50 years ago. So this will mark the 50th anniversary of the trail that the Murray family made when navigation was not quite as easy as it is today. Nonetheless, it's going to be a great adventure, and Bernadette joins us now to tell us more about it. Well, Bernadette, thank you for joining me. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this is an exciting adventure you're going on yet again. You're obviously a glutton for punishment to do it twice. So we want to talk a little bit about the background to this, how you did it the first time, and then we'll talk about the plan to do it starting next April again, because it's quite a long trek there, the Pacific Crest Trail, and I'm sure it will be a fun adventure, but very different to what you did the first time around. So let's start with a bit of your background, Bernadette, your family and your heritage there and where you're based.
Yes. Well, at the time, we were living in Marin County, California, in the little town of Lagunitas, which really was the true epicenter of the summer of love. And things were a little wild there. There was a lot of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And very near to us lived Janis Joplin and the Grateful Dead. And Janis would come to the neighbors and play her music all night long. And at that time, I did not have an appreciation. So my dad really was concerned about his young family and the environment that we were living in, the exposure to what was going on. And so we started to prepare to do the Pacific Crest Trail, something we had been talking about for a couple of years. And it just so happened that on October 2nd, 1968, Lyndon Baines Johnson signed the National Trail Systems Act, which designated, I should truly say, the Pacific Crest Trail. So with that, my dad decided that that's what we would do. Also, the other option was to sail around the world, but that didn't seem very practical. So the decision was made to make it be the Pacific Crest Trail.
2 very contrasting options then, sail around the world or ride from border to border. Give us a sense of your family background then, when you were born, Bernadette, and a little bit more about your parents and the kind of America that they grew up in.
It's very interesting. Yes, actually, I was born in London. My father was in the photographic unit of the Air Force during the Cold War, and he developed U-2 reconnaissance film and made the bombing maps. He actually developed the Sergeant Gary Parrow's film that came from over Russia, and he made bombing maps. So my dad was really just a consummate cartographer and knew how to read maps in a way that I've never seen anybody read a map. My parents were both from Oregon, met in Portland. And my dad, though, my grandma would drive up and drop him off out in the woods, even at the time when he was 11, and on a Friday night, and come back on Sunday and pick him up. So he'd be left to his own devices out in the woods. So he's a bit of a Daniel Boone. And my mom was really just someone who, if my dad said, let's go, she said, okay, we'll go. So she came along, and she was a real trooper. It was really my dad who was the person who was the glue. He seemed capable of doing just about anything in the woods.
And how useful being a cartographer, of course, when you're going to go on a trip which would not have been well navigated at that time. Now, what year were you born then, Bernadette, and do you have any siblings?
I do. I was born in 1958, and I have two siblings. I have a brother who is 2 years older than I am, Barry Jr., and I have a sister, Colette, and she's 18 months younger than I.
Right. So were they, all of you then, were just put on horses and some pack animals? Were they horses or were they mules that you used on the first time you did that trip?
Horses, all rescue horses.
Okay.
They had come right off the range, some of them. One had eaten local weed, so he was given to these instant sort of LSD-like flashbacks. And it was crazy. He would just, all of a sudden, he would start kicking and bucking and just tear. He'd go right through barbed wire. And if he had a pack on his back, which he did on this one particular day that I'm thinking about, and he wasn't fully packed yet, things started, provisions, cans of things were all over. It was like an Easter egg hunt. It was crazy. But, and many of them had been abused, misused. One, Colonel Rags, we called him because he had little tufts of hair all over his body and a tumor on his lip. He had his tongue cut almost all the way through with a bit. So it took a little doing for them, but once they realized just the joy and freedom of traveling on the trail, they were really excited every day to go. We had some happy, wonderful horses that really became family. And as we did the trail at that time, as you mentioned, it was hard to find our way because 2/3 of the trail was either unbuilt, unmarked, or unmaintained. And we had to get off. We carried with us Pulaski, shovel, pickaxe, and we would get off and a hatchet and build and mark the trail as we traveled. We went all the way from Mexico to the California-Oregon border and did not see one Pacific Crest Trail marker the entire state of California.
Yeah, that's extraordinary. So tell us, how many horses did you have then? Presumably the one with the injured tongue, you could only use a hackamore on him by now.
Yeah. We didn't use a bit on him. We used what often are called hackamore bits, where they have a bozel and hackamores. There were a few that had bits, but they were a much easier bit, and they were used very lightly. He had no bit on him at all because he was a pack horse. You couldn't actually ride him, but he could take anything. He could take a pack to within, just slide it between two trees or two rocks, and he was extremely loving. He was a happy horse.
So how many horses on the team then altogether?
Oh, there were 12, and we actually had it took 2 years to do the pack trip because so much of it was unbuilt and unmarked. And then once you got to Oregon, there was the Oregon skyline and the Cascade Crest, so those were much more developed. But on the first half of the pack trip, we had a teenage friend. He was a 16-year-old young man who had spent time with us out in the Alaska bush that joined us for that portion of the trail. So we had 12 animals on the first half. We had 6 that we rode and 6 that we packed. And of those that we packed, 3 carried provisions for the horses.
Right. So you each rode and led a pair then as you made your way. How many horses are you going to be taking on this trip, Bernadette?
We will be taking 4, 2 that will ride and 2 that will pack. And they will be Mustangs that are rescue Mustangs. We did have a Mustang with us, or a couple of Mustangs on the first half, on my first track. But this time we'll be using Mustangs there's two different rescue missions that we're working with. One in Bend, Oregon, called Mustangs to the Rescue. And Beth Beardsley, she takes Mustangs places that most other things can't go, including packing provisions into firefighters behind fire lines. And then the other rescue mission that we're working with is called Return to Freedom, and it's a Mustang rescue mission out of Lompoc, California. And Netta DeMaio, she has 400 acres where she keeps together whole herds of horses that have been rounded up, and they're bands, they're in families, so she keeps the integrity of the family together. Say, for instance, she has some Mustangs that are, they date back to the Choctaw Mustangs that carried the Cherokees on the Trail of Tears. So it's pretty interesting.
That's fabulous that you use these rescue horses, particularly the Mustangs, of course, that are constantly under threat. So you, like you did the first time, you'll have to leave your home where you are now to go down to Mexico to begin the trip. So how long are you allowing to get down to Mexico? Are you going to do the exact same trail then, even though it wasn't thoroughly marked as it will be this time? It will be pretty much in the same footsteps, will it, Bernadette?
More or less. But the PCTA, which they caretake, I should really say, the trail, they are forever trying to reroute it through areas where maybe it goes. And as a matter of fact, at this point, 8 to 10% of the trail remains under private ownership with only an easement. So while the vast majority of the trail will be in my footsteps, there are some places that have been moved because of that reason, and or we went someplace where the trail was unbuilt and we went cross country, and maybe it was slightly rerouted from that. My dad did choose the place where the southern terminus is today, down out of Campo, California, and that there's a monument at the terminus, which is a configuration of 5 posts at both termini, at Campo and then again at the Canadian border. And when we did it, it was 5 strands of barbed wire. And the reason why my dad chose that place is there was an abandoned customs house, which no longer exists. It's a bit of rubble, that was just inside of the Mexico border. So we went down to the border, picked that place, climbed through the fence, and visited that customs house. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So your trailer then, from where you are, from home down to Mexico, is that how you got there the first time round? Did you trailer down to Mexico to the start? How did you do it?
We did. We actually had 4 horses, and we trailered, and I laughed because there were, imagine this, 6 of us in the truck, and if it started to rain, the boys who were supposed to be riding in the back were in the front with us. So my dad would drive, and then my mom would sit next to my dad, and one of us girls would sit on her lap, and then the boys would be my brother and our friend James. And when we would pull into a gas station, you'd open the doors, and we looked like a clown car. So we only had 4 horses to begin when we went down to the border, and we acquired the rest of them, and some of them had never been ridden or set foot on a trail.
Well, so this is quite an undertaking. Now, what about the horses you're taking this time? How long will you have been partnered with them and get to know them before you trailer down to Mexico to begin that 2,650-mile trail trip?
Yes. We actually have our horses that will be riding chosen for us now, and we've met them. They are in Bend, Oregon at Kate Beardsley's return to Mustangs to the Rescue. And these horses have different life stories. These are not ones that were rescued off the range, but came into the rescue mission because, things like the owner grew old and was no longer able to care for the horse. So we will be going down and riding those horses and bonding with them over this next period of time before we actually set out for the trail. So we will have become a team by then. We'll also be doing some packing. We're not sure whether our pack horses are going to come from Mustangs to the Rescue or Return to Freedom. Okay,
well, let's introduce your partner in her absence, Lara Friesan, who is doing this with you now. Are you riding buddies? I can understand, two women who are riding buddies saying, okay, let's do a long trail ride. How do you know Lara, and why did you guys decide to do it? And why are you actually doing it again? When a lot of people would, say, okay, I've done this, I checked that box, I don't need to do that again. Why revisit it, and why with Lara?
Yeah, well, that's a really great question. Both questions. Let's see why. When my family finished, we finished on October 7th, 1970, and then 10 days later, Eric Ryback, who hiked southbound, finished the PCT. So after designation, my family, we were actually the first to finish the PCT. So this is a 50th anniversary commemorative ride that Laura and I are doing. And along the way, what we really intend to do is shed light on the changes, the transformation, the comparisons of then and now. Say, for instance, that we had cast iron. If we needed to communicate, we used a payphone. My dad would often have to hike out or ride out to get to the payphone. It would be a piece of paper pinned to a trailhead, or just passing the word with a few people that we would see along the way. Say if my grandmother was waiting for us at a trailhead, if we saw a hiker, we would ask them to tell the lady at the end of the trail that we were on our way. And Laura and I, we've been friends for quite a few years now. And she was, when I first met her, the club manager at a winery called Naked Winery in Hood River, Oregon, where I was a member. And we started talking about doing this trek. It just over a bottle of wine. and before we knew it, we began planning in earnest. And so that's how that happened. And we went down and did guided pack rides in June and through part of July out of Reds Meadow in eastern Sierras, Mammoth Lakes area, and really enjoyed our time there riding together. So we're looking forward to the partnership that you have when you do something like this.
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, it's a great opportunity to bond with somebody and you really get to know them on a marathon trip like this. Over 5.5 months, you said you expect to take. Now, this is starting again, as I said in my introduction, in April 2020. So why the long lead in? You wanted it to be close to the time that you did it before, but was it too soon to do it this year?
Yes. So we finished on October 7th of 2020. So we will be riding in 2020 in one season, which was unattainable at the time when we did it because of the incompletion of the trail. So that will make it be 50 years, and I might even have it be October 7th. It kind of depends. So that's why that date, that year, the 50th anniversary.
And what do you hope to achieve then by doing this? I mean, obviously you're keen on the environment, preserving the environment. You're very much in touch with nature and that dear to your heart, to both of you. But what do you hope to get from this?
Well, what we're doing is really shedding a light on what is happening over the past 50 years as far as people going out into the woods. So we are doing a 7-part docuseries. It'll cover the history, horses, gear and technology, the impact on the environment, the wilderness experience, why, and what the future is. And as we're examining those topics, we'll really be comparing what they were like. Say, for instance, our packs were canvas and 25 pounds. They were an early prototype of a tent that was designed by Bill Moss, who went on to MSR fame. My dad shoot our horses. There's discussion now of whether horses should have shoes or not, and they have booties. Of course, everyone has selfie-sticks and cell phones, and your cell phone is so much more than that. Whereas my dad used topographic maps, there was precious little available to find your way, and now it's all digital. Some people don't even use maps. It's all on their phone. Food is extremely different. We had the very early on dehydrated foods that now come complete in a meal, where you just add water. So we're really shedding a light on those changes, and also on the preservation of the trail, and helping to also focus on, there's a project here in Cascade Locks in the Columbia River Gorge. It crosses the Bridge of Gods, crosses from Oregon into Washington, and it is part of the Pacific Crest Trail. It's an antiquated bridge that is dates back to, was built in 1926. They raised it when they put in the Bonneville Dam in 1936, and it's a 2-lane graded bridge where you look straight down and can see the water, and it's really kind of eerie as you travel, and they don't stop traffic. And so with the onslaught of hikers and equestrians now, and people crossing the bridge, it's become a hazard. And so they're building a multi-use pedestrian for hikers, bikers, and equestrians that goes alongside the bridge, and that is one of the things we'll focus on. Also, as we said, the plight of the Mustangs, and as we have 2 rescue missions that are involved with us.
Yes, that's fabulous. So lots of causes here, lots of things to pay attention to and to generate interest in, hopefully. And as you said, recording this will be that much easier now with digitalization. So how many days, for over 5.5 months, how long will you ride per day, do you think? And I know it may be weather dependent, but roughly what would your typical day be planned?
A typical day would be, I believe, 20 to 25 miles. We will take 0 days, which is days that you take off and allow the horses to rest, and also repair. You have to wash their back pads and, just maintain your equipment as you go, and yourself for that matter. Horses can do, up to 40 miles a day without much concern. But it really, too, it depends upon the terrain.
Yes, and the weather, I'm sure. So how much preparation will you have then in terms of your own riding to be that long in the saddle? Because, I'm a rider, but I know what it's like to ride a long distance. It can get a bit sore after a while. So how much preparation can you do then so you are prepared for this?
Yes, well, we are planning on doing quite a lot of that leading up to it, and riding, going down to Bend and visiting our horses and bonding with them, and riding as much as we possibly can, and also making it out into the backcountry and doing some packing. So we'll be preparing diligently.
Right, and obviously your equipment is key, but now these days there will be more chances to restock your supplies along the way, I would imagine, not just in terms of equipment and replenishing equipment, or if you needed any veterinary care along the way, and restocking your own food and supplies and equipment. So have you mapped it in a way that strategically where you know those places are if you need them? Is that how you've mapped out the route?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, I have a friend. He rode for a cause. His father had ataxia and passed from that disease. And I worked with him in 2017, and he rode. He also rode rescue Mustangs, and he made a spreadsheet of all of the different campsites that he thought had good grass. And so, we have some collaborative work in that. And, versus, and we will have chase trucks, people who come and help us. And even if needed, if we had to change out one of the horses, say one of them got tender feet, we have the opportunity to have that happen. When my family did it, we had no assistance except for my grandmother showing up every now and then with a bale of hay and some fried chicken and potato salad. Other than that, my parents would have to go into town to get feed for the horses and food for us. That slowed us to a certain degree. So this time we'll have the luxury of having people come and bring us our provisions and assistance as needed.
I was going to ask about your backup crew because obviously, as you said, it's going to be that much more critical and helpful to you this time. So how have you selected that team, your crew there, and will they all be following you all the way?
Well, I think that there will be what we are planning on right now is that there will be someone who comes as needed, and there'll be a week or two in between those visits, so they won't be following us every night. I mean, we'll be out for long periods of time without meeting up with them. And so one of the people that we have selected is actually on our board of directors. Laura and I have formed a 501c3 called Border to Border, and he happens to be a member of our board. And we have other friends too that would like to assist with that. So we're still compiling that team, but we have one person in particular who will be more or less heading it up.
And it should be noted that you have a testimonial from Robert Redford, no less, on your website. How did you connect with Robert? Because I know he's passionate about the environment and, of course, a great horse lover. How did that connection get made?
Yeah, well, actually, this is one of those things where it was very serendipitous. Laura has a friend whose mother was Robert Redford's publicist, and she was telling him about the project, and he said, if you want me to, pass that off to Bob and see if he'd be interested. So that's how that happened, and he was willing to do that, and we're very happy to have his support. And actually, with him being on the board of directors for Return to Freedom, we're really hoping that maybe he'll come meet us or lend his voice toward our effort in even greater way than his statement of support.
That's absolutely wonderful. Well, it's going to be a terrific trip, and I'm sure it will be well documented. As you say, you're going to do a docu-series on it, a 7-part docu-series. Where will that be available? And in the meantime, will people be able to follow the trip via social media? How will all that work?
Yes, we will be on your regular social media outlets. Right now we have a Facebook page. We're putting up an Instagram page. We have our website, which is bordertoborderpct.com. You can follow us there. And right now we're working with a filming crew, and they are in talks with potential outlets. So we do not, as of this date, have an outlet for our docuseries, but we're hoping to find the right fit.
Wonderful. Well, there's always self-promotion to, not just in social media, but of course YouTube and Vimeo. There's lots of outlets now where you can make it publicly available. So what a wonderful opportunity to do this. I want to wish you the very, very best of luck with it. And perhaps we can catch up next year once you've started that trip and when you finish, Bernadette.
Yeah, thank you. That would be fabulous. We'd love to have you follow along. Love to hear from anybody that has questions, especially, if you're a trail person. One of the things that we're really examining is why. People used to ask my dad why, and his reason was always, getting out. And then we came to find that we come from a long line of outdoorsmen and adventurers. And they would ask us kids, would you ever do it again? And here I am. And at that time I thought, no, but I am.
Absolutely. Well, the very best of luck. I hope it goes so well, and you stay safe and obviously bring back lots of memories and images, and we look forward to sharing that with you, Bernadette. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Conversations from the world of women's sports. This is Wisp Sports Radio.
And if you hop over to our website at wispsports.com, just go to the Listen tab and look for the Amazon show. You'll find show notes accompanying this episode, which will include links to Bernadette's website and their social media, so you can follow their journey. And we'll be following along too. And we want to again wish them the very, very best of luck, because that's quite an undertaking. And they truly are Amazons. As always, you can follow us and join in the conversation on social media at Wisp Sports. You can also reach out to us here if you have any comments or questions or suggestions for guests for any of our shows. That email address is info@wispsports.com. Thank you for listening and supporting Wisp Sports and turning up the volume on women's sports. Goodbye for now.